I think doubt can be a healthy tool that God can use to actually grow a stronger faith.
And today we are talking about the topic of questions and letting our kids ask questions about, well, anything they want to, but especially being open to questions that maybe spark fear in us and anxiety, particularly maybe questions about God, Christianity, those sorts of things. So how do we become parents, people? How does our home become a safe place to ask questions and really make no question off limits?
Did you say no question? Not a single question is off limits?
Not a single question.
Any topic?
Well, now you're scaring me. Is there something you have in mind?
I'm just tapping into your insecurities here, Aaron.
Totally. Well, now I'm thinking.
I just want to push this and just see if you really believe what you say.
I do. I can't think of a question. No, really. I mean, we would be the place that our kids would feel free to ask any question they have.
Yeah, so even expressing doubt, which, of course, as a Christian parent, for some Christian parents, this is one of our biggest fears, is that our kids would doubt the faith, would doubt God, would doubt the work of Christ, would doubt the Holy Scriptures, and then walk away from it. And so sometimes out of our insecurity, our fear, we might, and maybe not even consciously, maybe subconsciously or inadvertently shut down their questions. And so we really want to talk through, how do you create, this environment where, hey, nothing's off limits and kids feel the safety to ask questions. So,
well,
how do we do that?
I think
I actually don't know.
I think first we start with our own expectations of our kids and how they're going to grow and learn and process. And I think our expectations should be that they are going to have questions. They're going to have lots of questions, and these are questions maybe that we haven't thought of ourselves. They might have an area where they're really wrestling with that we either never wrestled with, or even worse, maybe in our own insecurity and anxiety, maybe that they wrestle with questions that we had and maybe struggled with when we were younger. That could be scary too. But anyways, just having this expectation that we will have questions from our kids and that's okay, and we should expect it. We should see them coming.
It's a part of human nature, right?
Yeah.
Questioning, doubting, that is just part of being human. And maybe to put all of us at ease, I mean, I don't know if I know of a single Christian out there who hasn't had episodes of doubt in their life at some point. I mean, I experienced that very much on the kind of the intellectual side when I was a college student with a college professor who just kind of dismantled me. You look at the pages of Scripture. I mean, you can just go through almost every single person in the Bible, and they've had doubts. They've had questions, starting all the way back to Adam and Eve, who doubted God and his authority and his commands, to Noah, to Abraham, to Moses, to David. In the New Testament, John the Baptist, who baptizes Jesus, the disciples, Peter, who's one of the inner three. I mean, everybody has had doubts and questions. It's the rare person who doesn't, if that person even exists out there. And so maybe just so that we can all take a collective deep breath and relax a little bit about this, is that it's completely normal. In fact, I think it's helpful to realize it's not just, religious people that have doubts and questions. C.S. Lewis talks about this in Mere Christianity, where he talks about struggling with these different moods where Christianity seems improbable. But then he goes on to say, hey, when I was an atheist, I had moods in which Christianity looked terribly probable. Just saying, hey, as an atheist, I had doubts that maybe there really was a God. So I think it's just part of the human condition.
Would you even go as far as to say it's a healthy thing?
It can be. I think doubt can be a healthy tool that God can use to actually grow a stronger faith. I saw that in my own life when I began to doubt in college, particularly the intellectual foundations, having questions about the reliability of Scripture and things like that. What it did was it motivated me to find answers, and I discovered answers. I discovered good reasons. I discovered all this evidence for the faith that then rebuilt my faith in much stronger ways. So it certainly can be a tool. I think what's needed, though, are helpful ways to move forward with those questions and those doubts. So just first off, how do you create a home where an environment, a culture in your family where kids can safely question and safely doubt? Number one is just realize, hey, this is normal. This is completely normal. It's part of being human. Scripture's filled with doubters. We're doubters ourselves in various ways. And so that helps us to relax and realize this is just a normal part of parenting. It's a normal part of parenting. Now, when they express those questions, I think a second thing that we need to do is we need to make sure that we're not threatened by the questions, that we're not defensive.
Yeah.
Or if we do get defensive initially, that we apologize for that.
Yeah.
I think there's a number of benefits to kind of a response that says, hey, doesn't get defensive, doesn't shut it down, doesn't get upset by it, but is open to it. I think what that does is it creates that safety. And I think if we just think about it on a logical kind of basis here, and just a strategic basis maybe, is that, well, who would you rather have your kids express their questions and doubts to? Do you want them to not feel like they can talk to you about it and that they need to go to someone else? So they need to go to their college professor or school teacher, or go to their friends, or go to the internet, or go to YouTube. Do you want to push them in those directions? Or do you want them to feel like, hey, I can ask any question in my house with mom and dad, and it be done in a safe way where I'm not going to get my head bit off. I'm not going to be shamed for it. So I think strategically, it's just I want my kids to come to me with whatever questions they have, even if they're expressing their deepest doubts, even if they're doubting the very existence of God.
Yeah. I think, the not being threatened or feeling anxiety when they ask questions, I think one thing actually, questions are connected with doubt, but I think sometimes kids ask questions because there is just a general curiosity. So we might go to fear, like, oh, they're doubting, when maybe they haven't even gotten that far. They're just at the point where they're curious and are wanting answers that satisfy. And of course, depending on the age, a different answer will satisfy at that age. But I know I've heard a lot of stories of people walking away from Christianity, and so often it seems like their story begins with, I had questions and I didn't get answers to them, which then led to doubt, which then led to me walking away. Well, so not necessarily that it was even starting with doubt, but it was just questions that they weren't able to talk to with their parents, or a church leader said, oh, you just need to have faith or whatever. And they weren't satisfied with the answers. And then that led to doubt too.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention that the Fuller Youth Institute Brad Griffin and Kara Powell kind of head up that project there at Fuller Seminary. They've done some work on just young people who, beyond high school into college and beyond, who have sustained faith. One of the things they found is that kids who grow up in a church or a family or there's an environment where they can just express the doubt, it express the questions and ask those questions, who feel safe to do that, that correlated with young people who remained faithful to Christ. And it's not even that they got solid answers all the time. It's just that they had the freedom to explore that. And so, which I think speaks to the fact that it's not the environment isn't just, well, hey, we have all these solid answers and we can answer every question and we can share the truth in very compelling ways, and that's what it is. It sustains kind of the faith, but just there's value in just having that safe environment. And so that's why not being threatened is so important.
Yeah. And some people might be thinking, well, yeah, Brett, I mean, you, for your profession, are an apologist. You it's your life to answer people's questions about Christianity. Well, so that's easy for you to say, maybe, or something like that. I am not a professional apologist. I
don't apologize for that, Aaron. No, I'm just thinking about some people out there who might be like, well, what's an apologist, or and what's apologetics? And just to take a little brief detour here, apologetics comes from the Greek word apologia. 1 Peter 3:15, Peter says we are to be ready to make a defense. That's the Greek word apologia. It means defense. It's making a defense of Christianity, or giving a reason for the hope that we have. It's being able to answer questions. And so a lot of my work has been dedicated to that. But yeah, the vast majority are not professional apologists.
Yeah, including me. So of course I have the benefit of being married to you, and
that is a huge benefit.
Shoot,
let's talk a little bit more about.
I really opened that door, didn't I? But I think just being a person, whether you have training in a certain area or not, because I think about actually our kids' questions can be outside of the realm of apologetics and might be a theological question or whatever. And one thing I think I've had to get in the habit of doing with my kids and being okay with it is saying, I do not know, when they ask a question, and being okay with saying, wow, that is a really good question. I've actually never thought about that, or I've never thought about it that way. I mean, and this can be questions about nature and why the earth orbits the sun. I mean, take it to any area, but as parents, becoming comfortable with saying, first of all, that's a really good question. Because so often kids think of amazing questions that I have never thought of. And then two, being okay with saying, I don't know.
Wait,
but
you've said that to our kids? You said, I don't know, to our kids?
Yeah, I wish you would say it more, actually. Anyway, yeah, so saying, I don't know. But then continuing that in saying, but I want to find out the answer to that, because that's a really good question. And being modeling, I guess, just a willingness to learn. I'm 43. I still have lots of things to learn. I still have lots of things I don't know the answer to. And this I remember too, as I started going through the Bible with the kids years ago and really being more serious about reading the Bible, having this anxiety that they're going to ask a question that I don't know the answer to, and my kids thinking, oh, is mom inadequate? Does she not know this stuff? Or is, whatever, fill in the blank of what they'll think about me. But just being okay with saying, yeah, I know, we just read that and I don't get that either. And pulling out a commentary or pulling out a book on theology, something to help us find the answers, or even just saying sometimes, that's a good question. I'm going to look into it, and then we'll come back and talk about it.
Yeah, I think some of us may think that when we say we don't know or we don't have the answer to a question, that's going to harm our kids in some way. That might harm their faith because they see we don't have an answer. And I actually think when we're honest, it does a couple of things. Number one, it models humility. It models the humility we want our kids to have, that, hey, yeah, I'm willing to admit when I don't know the answer to a question. But then number two, it doesn't stop with I don't know. Then it's, well, let's seek out the answer. Let's study this together. And then that models the teachability that we want to have and that we want our kids to have. And so rather than harming their faith when we say we don't know, I actually think it can be very helpful to young people to see that humility and that teachability on our part. Okay, can we take we need to take a little commercial break here because someone has been crawling on my feet and scratching my feet. I thought, hey, maybe it would be a good time to introduce this little guy to our podcast family out there.
The newest, the Kunkel family has grown, not by a baby, but a little kitten named Walter.
So, hey everybody, this is Walter. Walter the cat. He's 9 weeks old right now, and he will just add to the madness here. I'm afraid he's going to scratch my head right now. He's like looking at me with those kind of curious eyes, like, what's that thing that looks like an ear?
Goodbye, Walter.
So anyway, he was scratching my feet and distracting me.
Yes. And okay. So third point about kids asking questions and how to cultivate an environment where that's open and not something that they're afraid to do. What do you think about the idea of inviting questions, actually turning it on our kids, especially once they get what age, 10, 11, 12, maybe even 9, depending on the kid, and turning it on them and starting to ask them questions instead of waiting for the the gauntlet to drop one day, or just
avoiding them until the very last moment. I actually think initiating the questions rather than kind of passively waiting for them is a really good strategy for parents. And that can start really young too. I think the younger, my elementary school kid, the kind of questions I might focus on at that point are the what questions. So, what do you believe about God? What do you think God's like? Or, those kind of questions, just to figure out where they are in their knowledge, or get to the questions. Asking the questions can provoke some curiosity in them wanting to learn. It can provide some motivation for them when your kid says, well, I don't know how to really answer that question, Dad. And then we can use that as a teachable moment. When they're older, I think then it's initiating not just the what questions, but the why questions, right? So really in 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade, those middle school, junior high years, we really want our kids to grow. We want to cultivate their intellectual growth. We want to cultivate their faith, and we can do that. I think we can stimulate that by initiating the why questions. So it might be, hey, why do you believe that God's real? I remember asking Ella that question when she was like 10 years old. She's 12, she must have been 9, 10, somewhere around there. She's now almost 13. I asked her, hey, Ella, why do you believe, that God's really out there? And her first response was, because you told me, Dad, and that's great. I'm glad that she has confidence that what Dad says is actually true. But I want her to go beyond that, because there are things that Dad may believe that aren't true or mistaken. And I want her to own her faith And I think one of the best ways is by her being able to answer those questions for herself, independent of mom or dad. So, hey, yeah, that's a good answer when you're young, but now I want you to have your own reasons. So, okay, could dad be wrong about that? And she was like, well, yeah, I guess so. And I said, okay, let's say dad's wrong, or maybe dad doesn't know. What reasons do you have apart from me for why you think God is real? And that got her thinking about, it just got her thinking about the whole idea of evidence for God. Mm-hmm. That what Paul says in Romans 1, right? That God's existence is evident in the created order, in the natural world. So, yeah, I think we can initiate questions. We can kind of provoke the kids in good ways. And I think a huge benefit of this is that it shows that we're not afraid of the questions.
Yeah.
You know, and that's, in fact, one of the unique missions or trips that we do for students through Maven are these, what we call immersive experiences. And the immersive experiences are designed to get students to face the questions. So, for instance, we will do training in apologetics with a group of a youth group or a Christian school, and then we'll take those students on an experience. One of our locations is Berkeley, California, and no shortage of skeptics up there, and we invite them out. And what we're trying to do is initiate the questions with these students. Mm-hmm. And one of the huge benefits is that these students walk away and they're like, gosh, Christians don't have to be afraid of the questions. They don't have to be afraid of the skeptical questions. They don't have to be afraid of doubting. And so it models, I think when we initiate the questions, it models the confidence that what we believe is actually true.
Yeah, and thinking about the trips too, I think our kids have had the benefit of growing up in our family, so they've gone on these trips with us since they were babies, literally babies. So they've had the benefit of being on these trips, but and some people might think, well, yeah, you guys, you're doing these trips so your kids have seen this modeled. But I think the modeling part of what we're doing on the Berkeley and Utah trips is a modeling that parents can do who are not involved in the Maven ministry and aren't doing these trips. But the modeling that we're doing is just engaging in conversation with people who don't believe what we believe. And our kids have seen their entire lives that doesn't scare you and I, that we're open to conversation with people, that we're inquisitive, we ask people questions, we're wanting to know what they think. And then they see us engaging in the conversations, they see us wrestling with issues too outside of those conversations. So they see us having conversations ourselves about these things. They see us reading and learning and growing in all kinds of different topics and areas. But yeah, I think the modeling that we've been able to do through the trips, but also even at home, just having Mormons come into our home or Jehovah's Witness. So our kids have seen that we regularly engage in conversations with people who don't believe in Christianity, and that doesn't scare us or repel us in any way. We invite it, and they've seen us grow in it.
Yeah, I think that modeling is kind of the key last point here. And so, for instance, when Jehovah's Witnesses show up at the door, which they did a couple weeks ago, if Mormons show up at the door, that for us is an opportunity that we, I think is a great opportunity to model for our kids all of this. And so we're inviting someone into our home. You know, we don't just slam the door, say no thanks, get out of here. No, we try to let those people in to just model, hey, here's someone who's questioning the Christian faith, and we're not afraid of that. And so, but of course, I think this requires, there is a sense where we want to say you don't have to have all the answers, right? Clearly. And none of us has all the answers to any question at every time, right? That's something it's just not a reality. But the flip side of that too is we don't want to be apathetic about it. We don't want to say, well, and that's where I'm at is just fine. And no, we want our lack of knowledge to motivate us too. And this is the other aspect of the modeling is modeling how to ask the questions, that you're asking questions, that you and I are continuing to grow, but then modeling the learning aspect of it is that we're seeking out answers, that we model intellectual curiosity, intellectual hunger, intellectual discipline and habits. So our kids seeing us maybe wrestle with a question, or hey, maybe we've had some debate at dinner time over a particular issue.
Not maybe. I mean, we have. We debate because we actually don't agree on every single thing.
Well, I don't even agree with that. So,
so our kids have seen you and I go back and forth.
No, they
on
haven't. Okay, yes, they have.
On theological issues, on apologetic issues,
there's
all of these types of
a
things.
few points of theology that I've had to correct you on. That's
funny. I don't remember it that way. But so they've seen us even in our relationship,
knock it around.
Trying to grow in these things, listening, having to listen to the other person's viewpoint, having to articulate our own viewpoint. So all these things were just a part of life, and we're okay with that. We're okay that our kids see that dad might answer a question differently, or that we kind of see. Of course, we don't see the fundamentals of the Christian faith differently. Of course,
you aren't questioning God's existence, at least recently.
I'm not. But yeah, on all kinds of things that will end up coming up, that we're okay with questioning, discussion, and we're okay with saying, yeah, I mean, I know one thing that we both have said when the kids have asked questions is, wow, you know what? I haven't really done a lot of reading on that topic before. Or yeah, I haven't really come down on a side on that topic, but that would be a really good thing to learn about. And
sometimes when that happens, we will go right to the bookshelf or jump right online and say, hey, let's look up a couple of things. Let's let's get an overview of this.
Yeah.
And so we jump right on that because we want to, what a great teaching opportunity that is. And so that is where we as parents need to be probably putting down our phones a little bit more, keeping the screens off a little bit more, reading books more in our homes, listening to podcasts like this one, things like that to model for our kids the intellectual growth that we want to see in them. So all that to say, I think these are some key ways that we create environments in our home where our kids can feel safe to question and to express their doubts. And ultimately then to pray our kids through that process so that the doubt and questioning can actually be a tool that leads to them ultimately to a deeper faith in Christ.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions at this point, Erin? Are you doubting anything I've said so far?
Oh, I'm doubting a lot of things that you've said. But...
Well, then let's close it off right there. All right. Thank you for joining us on this podcast. If you have questions, if you have doubts, please keep them to yourself. No, email us at info@maventruth.com and send in your questions. We'd love to address your questions. If we don't know an answer to the question, we'll just say we don't know. That would be the shortest podcast ever. Here's a question from Mark in Iowa, and I don't know.
Then we'll model good Christian living, and we'll look it up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we'll do that too.
Yeah.
So send us your difficult questions and tune in to the next podcast.
See you next time.